Okay, cool. Yay, we are live. Okay, awesome. Well, hello everybody. It is so wonderful to be here with you all and see you all. And this is the Musio Cinesamples team. Everybody wave hi to these wonderful people who've taken time out of their day to show up. We're so excited to have this discussion, to be here with you all. We want to answer your questions. We want to get into the nitty gritty of it. We want to give new exciting information, overview all the stuff that we've done. But before we get into all that, and we have lots of time to do that, I just want to kick it over to Mike Patty, our founder and CEO, so that he can give kind of a quick overview of what Musio is, sort of where it came from, and what we're doing right now, just in case there's any new people who aren't really sure about what the platform kind of entails. So Mike, take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Shane. All right. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Mike. So I'm the founder of Cinesamples. We've been in business for about 15 years, and we've been making virtual instruments for professional composers throughout those years. And it's been very successful. But one of the things that we wanted to do was to try to get these instruments into the hands of more people. And one of the challenges we had was trying to create instruments faster and delivering them faster. And so that's why we created Musio. Musio allows us to build instruments really quickly and then deliver them instantly to your DAW. And it's selfishly, it's benefited us because we can just go into a studio and we can do the session. And then within like a couple of days, we can have the instrument delivered directly to everyone's DAW, everyone that has Musio. So we just launched it. Well, we technically launched a public beta about a year ago to get feedback from all of you guys. And then we did the official launch about 3 months ago. And we're getting a lot of good feedback. And yeah, so it's going very well. And the point of today is to kind of introduce you to this great team. When I had the idea for Musio, it was, I should have brought it, but it was just a sketch on a piece of paper. And I talked to Harrison and Toby, and I was like, hey, I got this crazy idea. You guys want to help me build this thing? And we started a few years ago, just as a side project. And now it's a solid piece of software, and we've brought this incredible team. And I thought, it'd be a great opportunity for you to ask questions to us directly, because as a company, we consider ourselves to be very customer focused. More so than product focused. We want to make sure we're building stuff that you actually want rather than the things that we want. So that's the point of today. So
yeah, let's go around, because since we've done this, it's been about a year since we've done like a big live stream like this. I want to introduce some of the key players that we've brought onto the team, and introduce some of the background players that you might not have heard so much about. But specifically, I want to start with Harrison's team. Harrison and Toby are kind of like the unsung heroes of Musio. I know you see a lot of videos of the production team and the marketing guys and Mike, and we play the instruments and show them off and stuff, but we don't get to play instruments without sort of the genius and expertise of Harrison and Toby. They're amazing developers and programmers, and they help keep us grounded, and they develop all the features for Musio and have built the platform from the ground up. So just want to give you guys a quick shout out and say thank you for all the super crazy hard work. I know you're going to get to hear from them more about upcoming features and kind of what we're implementing and what we're fixing in a bit. And then the other person who is here, who we all dearly love, and even though he's been only here for a little bit of time, he seems like a core part of our team that we couldn't do this job without. It's Doug Provisor, our CMO. Doug, you want to give a wave? And he's incredible. I could go on and on about Doug, but his marketing expertise, his business acumen, and his experience in this industry, working with a ton of really amazing companies and bringing some really incredible products to the market, has been integral to our success so far, and just keeping our heads on straight and pointed in the right direction. So thank you, Doug. Do you want to give a little bit of a brief bio about yourself? I know that we're going to get into some techie stuff, but I'd love it if you could just introduce yourself. And
yeah, really quickly. Background started with Pro Tools before it was Avid, so DigiDesign. So really helping to pioneer the whole DAW experience for folks, and moved on to Line 6, so pioneering digital technology for guitar players. So have been in this space forever and super excited to be part of the team here.
Awesome. Well, that's kind of it. So here we are. This is us. Let's talk about sort of where we've been. Let me pull up the roadmap real quick, and I'm just really excited for this. This is what we sort of took a big risk on and said, hey, we're going to do all of these things. And we put out the lifetime subscription model. And so far, we've been checking off boxes. If you go to musio.com and on the top bar, click the coming soon, you'll see sort of our roadmap for the year. But I want to talk through what we've done and sort of where we're at and where we're going. And but before we get into that, actually, let's see. Do we have any questions, Maddie?
We do. We just got a really great question from Cheddar Egg, which I really love that's an awesome name. And they say, I've noticed that the Taylor Davis and Holly Woodwinds libraries are not included in the roadmap. Does this mean that they won't be coming to Musio?
That's a great question. Let me answer that directly.
Yeah.
So Taylor Davis will be coming into Musio, absolutely. The delay on that is we just had to work out the details of her deal, basically her contract. So a lot of these libraries that we developed as Cinesamples had paperwork that went along with them, and transferring all that over and making sure everything's legal and that artists are fairly compensated and are happy about that deal and everything all has to happen before we get those on. So we weren't 100% sure about that when we posted all the roadmap, but we are sure about that. We've talked to her and we're excited to not only include her library in Musio, but work with her more in the future and get some more solo instruments. She's a phenomenal musician. If you don't know about Taylor Davis, just Google her name. She's everywhere. Go on YouTube, watch her videos. She's phenomenal. So yes, that will be included. Holly Woodwinds is an interesting one. One of them a couple of them that weren't mentioned that I'll mention are the deep percussion beds libraries 1 and 2. And the reason they're not on the roadmap is because there's a feature set that's not included in Musio yet that will be coming in the future, but it's time-based effects. So being able to artificially speed up and slow down samples is really important for any library that requires that. So Cinestrings runs, Holly Woodwinds, deep percussion beds 1 and 2. The plan is to get them into Musio. We just don't want to put something out there and promise something that could mislead our user base. If we say, hey, we're going to put this out and everyone's like, oh, it's going to be exactly the same as the contact version and all the runs are going to be able to tempo sync and all that stuff. We just don't want to have someone give us money, based on the idea of that and be very disappointed. So we didn't include them in the roadmap, but our plan is absolutely 1, to include them and get all the sample content in, and 2, to develop features that will make them playable as you recognize them from the contact versions, for sure.
You have another question that just came in from Mandala Man. Are the samples in Musio instrument libraries the same as the samples that are sold in the individual libraries outside of Musio through Contact?
It's a great question. Let's kick this one to Santi and have him answer. Santiago is our lead Musio developer. He is the person that makes me look good at doing my job. He's the man behind the curtain. And he deals with all of our sample content from start to finish. So yeah, go ahead, Santi.
Yeah, a lot of what makes it into Musio also makes it into Contact, and part of why sometimes our libraries are a little delayed or something is because we have to make absolutely sure that it's the same samples that make it into both platforms. And because of the different feature sets, sometimes that's a little more difficult, or you need extra scripting on one end. So yeah, to answer it short, it's the same set of samples that are on both platforms.
And can you speak a little bit to the legacy libraries as well? Because I've noticed some comments and even some feedback we've gotten where people say like, oh, hey, X library, in Cinebrass Pro doesn't sound the same in Contact as it does in Musio. Is that because the wave samples are different? Quick answer.
No, it's not because of the samples. Yeah, it's because of features and finessing that is different in both platforms. And for a lot of these legacy libraries, we don't have a workflow. So we've had to come up with an alternate workflow that allows us to get a lot of the values that we already put into Contact and apply them into Musio directly without having to do the work twice. So we can have parity between both platforms.
Exactly. That means that you should see the same sort of tuning and the same sort of amplitude and all of this different kind of stuff across. One of the things that I was just thinking about late last night as I was reading some of those comments was, I think we have some IRs specifically that we've used in Cinesamples for a long time, preloaded into our contact libraries, and that reverb is actually turned on by default to kind of make it more robust. So when people just load up contact and load up Musio and do an A/B, there's actually a different reverb in Musio than there is to contact. We're improving our reverb in Musio, and we've got a bunch of really awesome new algorithms that Ed helped develop and build, and those are going to be implemented soon, but they're not going to be identical. So one is not better or worse, one's not higher or lower quality, but they are different platforms. So I hope that answers the question, but yeah.
We've got a great question from Maestro Harmony. Will you add features that are from the contact libraries like adaptive legato, double, triple tonguing scripts for Cinewinds and Cinebrass?
That's a great question. What was the last part of that question?
Double, triple tonguing scripts for Cinewinds / Cinebrass.
I don't know about double, triple tonguing scripts. We'll have to talk about that internally, but we've all been kind of aching for more legato controls for sure. So that's on the roadmap. We're very aware of that need, and we feel it ourselves. One thing I will say about this team is there isn't a single one of us on here that doesn't make music. And we all kind of get high on our own supply. We use Musio, we use our contact instruments. This is part of our lives. So if you're feeling a pain point, rest assured we're feeling that pain point as well. And we've got some plans to mitigate that. But legato specifically, we're probably not going to add as complicated in some cases. You know, our contact instruments are here and there with what kind of features they have for legato, but we are going to add speed controls and adaptive controls and all that stuff in the future for sure. About the scripts, let me answer this kind of in a general sense. A lot of different libraries are very unique and they require different approaches, different scripting. Right now, we've been trying to keep Musio as simple as possible, but as we get into more of the complex situations and features of libraries, we are looking at developing more custom scripts for those so that they can play back as close as possible. We're just going to weigh them on a one-to-one basis and say, is this really worth it? You know, profit loss kind of a thing. Is it like, if people are really asking for a feature, we'll do it. If it's kind of a feature that was just there because we thought it was fun, but doesn't really help the instrument, we're not going to do it. So be vocal. Ask us, submit feedback, say you want those things. It definitely weighs into the conversation. We all pay attention to your feedback. We have a channel in our business communication app, and it constantly pops up and pings us when you guys talk to us. So yeah, please keep that up.
It's worth mentioning. Oh, sorry, Maddie.
Oh, go ahead.
But I think it's worth mentioning that actually Musio, we have our own custom scripting language, right? That's based in Lua that we haven't actually taken full advantage of yet. Everything in Musio is pretty much just native, all the round robins, all of the legato for efficiency purposes. But there's this whole language that we could be leveraging pretty soon. I'm sure Harrison could speak to that real briefly.
Yeah, let me jump in real quick. Yeah, we've got a full Lua scripting stack that when we were developing it, we were really looking at what are the needs and features of contact scripting or KSP. Toby is between the three devs here. He's our KSP expert, so we were kind of leaning on him to pull a lot of ideas there. I would say the reason we're hesitant to really leverage the scripting is we really take a strong stance on user experience, as well as making sure it is a unified user experience. If you look at the contact libraries that Cinesamples has produced, kind of following up what Shane said, it's really disparate between the libraries. Some of the features were championed by different product developers, different scripters, things like that. We're keeping things very vertically integrated. So when we do adaptive legato, it's rolled out to every instrument. And at the end of the day, there's probably a subset of, maybe 80% of adaptive legato can target all our instruments, our legato instruments, without requiring script level detailing. The other big difference, we have the powerful Lua engine that lets us do lots of cool stuff on the hood, but our user interface, again, if we're staying UX focused, we want to maintain that simplicity. And I think a lot of features that are great in the contact world of Cinesamples instruments really rely on having this super customizable UI with image features and things like that. Musio definitely strives to keep a little bit of purity, simplicity on like knobs, buttons, switches, nothing too crazy like that.
Yeah, and I think we argue a lot about how to keep things simple, and it's actually really hard to stay simple. Like the easiest thing to do is just add everything you can imagine into Musio.
Yeah.
But if we do that, then it's just a mess. It's complicated. It's hard to use. And there's other sampler platforms that are kind of moving in that direction. And we're like, no, let's do the opposite. So we argue heavily about what should actually be in Musio, what is actually usable.
Yeah.
You know, okay, 3 people want this, but 50 people want this. So, you know, let's
or if we add
smart.
that thing for the 3 people, maybe 100 people will be confused by that.
Could be, yeah. Right. So like
discussion.
we deliberate a little too obsessively about this. And it's good. So
Maddie, can you talk about kind of the design approach? I know we've had a lot of people recently just asking for more robust features, and obviously that's something that we want as well. But you and I designing the app, you know, and getting our fingers into it, I think we've hit some of those walls where we're just like, okay, how do we do this well? We want those features too. Can you just kind of go over sort of our problem space and define that and talk about some of the challenges and successes and failures we've had?
Yeah, I think back when we really started diving into the design and how to implement this well from basically scratch back in 2021, I think it was interesting just with the flow of taking each new idea and problem as we came and kind of taking the building blocks from there and going. And now I think we have a much broader picture of what Musio is, and it requires stepping back into kind of those first basic blocks of what we did with Musio and really looking very honestly at what we designed from the very little information that we had or the few ideas that we had at first, and saying, does that still apply now after all that we've grown in and all that we've done so far and all that our new users are asking for. So it's a really fun and interesting challenge to be faced with. And I think right now we're just trying to figure out how to implement as many, like you guys said, keep it simple and usable with a really healthy flow, but also implement more and more things where it becomes usable to a wider range of users. So I don't know if that answers the question.
I think so. Yeah. The only thing I'd add is that when we get inundated with feature requests, we tend to get really excited internally about them. And the whole team kind of, you know, we pick sides and we fight each other and we say, well, this is more important or that's less important or whatever. But really the challenge comes down to how do we add all of these things in an elegant way that doesn't destroy the simplicity, the ease of use, and the straightforward approach that Musio, I think, for me, has really been its key feature. I've written more music in the last year and a half of my life than any year and a half before, because Musio is so simple. And I'm a person who gets option paralysis. I'm a knob tweaker and a button pusher. I think a lot of our team we think that way. We're techies. It's been a very difficult challenge, but a really encouraging and exciting one to say, okay, what do I actually need to make music? And the way that it streamlines our workflow and helps us create music is really been an amazing thing. So it's valuable to us. We're going to maintain that simplicity. We're going to maintain that very, very basic, very, very bare kind of a look. But we're also going to elegantly add some of these features that are truly key to, you know, any producer's workflow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's worth mentioning the obvious, which is that in Musio, there's actually a feedback button, and the team reads every single thing that's submitted. Yeah. So within Musio, like on the top right, you can just click submit feedback. And then there's actually per instrument, you could submit feedback per instrument if you notice something or you have a specific thing that you'd like to see within that instrument. So everything is read and then prioritized on our end.
All right, let's prove it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, just while we're on the topic
yeah.
of design and features in the app, we have a question from Akwashi Music. He says, will there be a download all button for each library available?
Okay. let me reorganize here. I'm going to get to that question in just a second, but I want to kick this over to Steve. Let's prove that we actually listen to your feedback. Steve, without looking at your computer, off the top of your head, if you want to close your eyes, you can. What are like the 3 to 5 top pieces of feedback that we have heard and we are going to deal with about instruments or about features or whatever? Like, I know he can do this. It's so easy.
Well, the first one's a download all button. So yeah, nice timing on that one.
Yeah.
Download all per collection. Mic positions and additional features. Key switching, articulation switching.
What about instrument bugs?
Oh, okay. I mean, there's a bunch that we have recently pushed a bunch of fixes for. So yeah, over the.
You want to pull up that list and like read it through? That one that Santi posted, I think.
Oh yeah.
Because this will actually clear up a bunch of different stuff.
Oh boy, yeah. Are we sure? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
It's in Musio Releases channel.
Yeah, it is. All right. So, so let's see. I think these are live by now, right? These all should be in there. So recently fixed, we have.
I don't know, Santi. Are they all live?
Yeah. Yeah. Before I.
Hold on. Are still in beta, but they're coming live very soon.
Next release cycle.
Yep.
Great. Okay, cool. So biggest one is Cinepiano. This is a pretty commonly reported one. There's a hinky note in there that snuck its way into the wrong mapping. That one's going to be fixed. Dynamic curve is getting fixed. Let's see, reverb defaults. Oh yeah, this is an exciting one. The drum kits for the hi-hats for the Sunset drum kit are gonna respond to choke function finally. Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. Clarinet whole step trills, the dynamics it's gonna respond to the dynamics. Replace some missing samples in Drums of War 2 medals. Fix the velocity curve for all the shorts in Sinistring solo. Bass flute staccatissimo was missing reverb and expression controls, and then
I think we get the point now. Yeah. It goes on and on. But just so you guys know, we hear your minute feedback and your macro feedback. All of the stuff is very much considered. And even though none of us have any extra time in our day because we're trying to develop all this stuff, Santiago and Kirsten, our 2 wonderful Musio developers, took their time and pushed extra hours and all these different things to get these fixes in so that you guys' lives could be better. So let's move on to that question specifically about the download all button. Yes, we're going to have a download all button coming to you. It's actually going to come with a couple of different features. One of the things that we realized is after adding so much content, and let's just put a general number on it. I think in the last 3-4 months, we've tripled the size of the Musio library. That's with legacy content and new content. It's a lot of stuff. And right now, if you're a Musio user, you know that when you click into a collection, you get this massive list of single articulations and instruments that you can load. And for larger collections like Cinestrings or Cinebrass or Gino Luciani flutes, it's just a lot. It's a lot to scroll through. It's a lot to kind of, comb through. So what we're going to implement is one more layer of organization where when you click, let's use Gino Luciani flutes, for example, which is a phenomenal library. If you guys haven't heard that, if you guys don't follow Gino Luciani, please go do that. She's a fantastic human and a brilliant flute player. But she recorded a concert flute, an alto flute, a bass flute, and a contrabass flute. And right now there's about 140 articulations and effects across all those flutes. So when you click into her collection, you get this massive list and it might be difficult to scroll through. What we're going to do is we're going to implement a instrument level of organization so that when you click on the collection, you get a choice between those 4 instruments. So it's just a little bit more navigable. And once you're in the single instrument, will give you a download all button. So if you want to download the entire alto flute, you can do that. It's basically been a tool that we've had implemented for our dev team for a while because they have to download these things constantly. But we just want to fine tune it and make sure, one, it's designed well and it's not, all hanky and stuff. But we also want it to work perfectly every single time for users. We don't want to mess anything up. So that's taken a bit of time, but we're getting closer and absolutely developing it.
We have a question from Michael Johnson about the subscription models. And they're asking if obtaining a perpetual license is going to be something that's consistently available or if it's only available for a limited period of time.
Doug, Mike, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll sure. So first of all, I wish we had a crystal ball to see the future. It's definitely something that people want still. There's a vast amount of folks that still want to pay perpetual licenses. But there's also an equal number of folks, probably a lot more, that prefer the, whatever, $10 a month to get everything. So for now, we are providing that. In terms of it being, so when we did it, was it 3 months ago now? We did this lifetime offer for a really low price, and it was kind of just sort of like the people that participated in that were kind of like early investors, early adopters. It was to kind of help us out, to help us commit to this roadmap that we developed, and we're on track for that. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, we are, at least for this year, for sure, going to continue offering these three things: the perpetual, the annual, and the monthly, just to make it so everyone has options. I think we get into trouble if we say, no, it's only going to be this way or that way. People yell at us. So, and also, frankly, when we do this, when you launch a product, you don't know what the price is until you put it out there, and then you adjust based on feedback. We pretend to we have all these meetings and we discuss what we think is going to be the right thing, but it's not until you actually put it out there that you discover, oh, we got that wrong or we got that right. So.
Yeah. And I'd also like to say that, that's a constant ongoing discussion. Some of the price decreases that we just recently lowered the price of Musio. That's not because Musio wasn't selling. It's not because it wasn't doing well. In fact, it was doing phenomenally at the prices what we put it out. But we are really committed as a group. I think I can speak for everyone here. We're students and we're producers as well. And we're committed to access for this community. We don't want to put something, way out of the reach of regular people making music. We didn't set out to be an exclusive club, and I don't think we ever will be. We have people all across the socioeconomic spectrum in this company. We have people from all walks of life and different stages of life, new married people and newly graduated people and all those different things. And we all have different amounts of money to spend on gear. And we all are gearheads. You'll notice in the back of our of our cameras, studio equipment of some kind, and we just wanted access for everybody. When we think about the Musio customer, it's not just the people who are recording in these massive studios and working on these famous projects. It's about people who are just want music in their life. So that's the impetus behind it. And when we get enough people on, it'll be really an amazing community. Yeah. Any other questions pressing, or should we move on with the agenda as it is?
We have one specific feature question from Justin Crosby asking about sample delay, unified sample delay, as it's becoming a pretty widely accepted feature among orchestral and instrument developers. Is this something that we've discussed and considered as a feature?
Briefly, kind of in closed door meetings. I know that Harrison, Toby, and I and Santiago have kind of kicked that can a little bit around, but mostly as just like a dream of a wish of a thought. We're focusing so much right now on just content acquisition, getting all the stuff that we've recorded in and getting the key features on, that we don't want to fill the plate too much and then choke on it. So right now, just so you guys know, we spent the last year and a half recording just a massive amount of content. We've got Cinestrings Pro coming to Musio very soon. We're going through the final key maps and exporting those right now. We've got a big session from Vocis 8. If you don't know Vocis 8, they're this amazing vocal group from England. We're beta testing those right now. Well, internal, I guess it's an alpha test. We've got the entire World Adventure series. If you follow any of our social media or Cinesamples or Musio, we went to Scotland and Ireland and South Africa and Iceland, and we recorded choirs and percussion and tonal instruments that are unique to those places. And it's just been a massive backlog. So right now we are committed to getting all of the Cinesamples legacy content in, and all of the stuff that we have in the can that's brand new and will be Musio exclusive and stuff in, before we talk about extended pro Musio features. I want key switching before I get sample delay. I want multi-mic positions before I get a lot of those stuff. So one encouraging thing that you might all want to know, it's a little bit of a curtain reveal thing, is at the beginning, we developed hundreds of user stories about what we wanted Musio to be and what we wanted it to include. And the overwhelming positivity of that is that as we get feedback, it's basically just checking the boxes on our user stories. So what we imagined Musio to be is essentially what you're asking for. We're just trying to prioritize and focus on the key features before we get into all the little things.
We do actually have a specific question about the World Series. Is it a good time or premature?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. So Runar asks, could you provide any info on what instruments were sampled from the Icelandic library?
Yes, I actually have it pulled up because I knew somebody was going to ask.
And with that as well, for those of you that were physically there sampling, would love to hear from the two of you.
Kirsten and Santiago.
Let me give a brief list because I have it pulled up, and then Santiago and Kirsten can jump in and just talk about it. So we have a Shetland goo, a tagelharpa, a bass tagelharpa, a lure horn, a lyre, a longspiel, a symphonia, which is like a medieval hurdy-gurdy kind of an instrument. We've got medieval drums, all sorts of different kinds. We've got shaman drums, some with like goat skin, some from Germany, some with like hexagonal shapes and stuff. We've got a Inuit drum made from like a Greenland reindeer skin, I think, Canadian hand drums, a bunch of shakers, seed pods, and goat feet, and all sorts of stuff. We have a shaker that has Inuit buffalo testicle shaker. It's written down. You guys are going to have to deal with it. We're probably not going to name it that in Musio, but you got the inside track. We've got ankle rattles, a dabur, large and a small, and a nickel harpa drones. Also, this is not going to be included in the initial set because it's going to take us some time to go through, but we recorded a absolutely gorgeous women's choir. And it's kind of the follow-up to Voices of War, Men of the North. This is going to be Women of the North, but they did a phenomenal job. But Santi and Kirsten, go ahead and talk about it. What was it like being there? And
all right, so we started with the choir. Actually, that was really, really great. We recorded at Sirland Studios in Iceland, in Reykjavik, where is where Björk has done a lot of her job, and I nerded out about that massively and took pictures of everything Björk related and was asking Björk questions to everyone. But regardless, the choir went amazing. We recorded an all-women choir and then a solo soprano on the first day, and then the next couple of days we recorded all the traditional Icelandic strings, Nordic strings that Shane mentioned. And we got some fantastic percussion. We prioritized it, trying to get a lot of timbres instead of multiple articulations. So different types of beaters, different types of drums. And yeah, Kirsten, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I feel like listening to that list of instruments, I had forgotten that we'd recorded so many different things. Like it felt like a complete whirlwind, because we were there, like they were quite long days to try and pack as many things in. And like we worked with these musicians and they just came with bundles of instruments and they were like, oh, I have this. And then we talked about where they got this instrument. And we heard about all the stories of all the different things that they had and how they got to where they were. And I can't remember if we included some of that content on social media yet or not, but we have a lot of interviews with all the musicians from all of these different countries that will eventually release. And yeah, hopefully it should give a good background to how you would use these instruments. And that was something that we definitely kept in mind as well. We wanted to record each instrument in a way where you would actually play it like this, rather than, oh, we could make it do this or we could make it do that. It's like, no, what does this do? This is what we're going to record. I definitely learned a lot while we were recording. It was
if I may add, to speak to that that you were just saying, Kirsten, I think it was really great to go to these sessions expecting something for a lot of these instruments, and then getting there and realizing that the instrument cannot play a certain way, or that the resonance is different, like something that didn't work. And we were very quick to change all of our plans and recording sheets to accommodate for what the instrument actually did. And I think that's, as we're going through the editing, the noising, mixing, and all of that, I think we're hearing very good results from that.
Did either of you have a favorite instrument that you sampled while you were there?
For me, I loved working with the choir. Like I was doing the conducting, and as a singer myself, like the tone that they had is so pure, and they were saying things in Icelandic, and it just sounds amazing. So very excited.
Yeah, same for me. It was the first thing we recorded on that World Series, and it blew my mind instantly.
Can you speak a little bit, Santiago, about some of the more non-traditional instruments that were like bizarrely tuned and handmade and stuff?
So a lot of the strings, a lot of the replanning happened with the strings, because I particularly went like from my experience with recording orchestral strings, so they stay in tune very well, and they're classically trained musicians, so they hear piano or forte or whatever, and they know exactly what to do. But we were dealing with like folk instruments that have been recreated from texts that use gut strings, and all sorts of things that give tuning problems. So yeah, we had to change it from more of like a individual note playable instrument to more of a performance approach, which is not to say that you cannot play every single note, because we did record every single note, every single articulation. We're more focusing on the performance of how this instrument is traditionally played than on giving you the options to play every kind of music with that instrument.
Yeah. And also I'd like to kind of bring up, with a lot of these World Series instruments, they're from different places in the world where 440 tuning is not necessarily the standard or the norm. And they're played in folk music and taverns, and they're played in villages and all these things. So it's not supposed to be perfect. And if you listen to, the show Vikings, that score, or the Northmen, where you just have a drum and one kind of string instrument drone, it doesn't need to be in tune. It's meant to sound gritty and gross and stuff like that. So we're gonna maintain the heart of that and make it playable as possible. But yeah, this was a really, really exciting kind of a session. So all that to say, to wrap it back up, we've been doing a lot of that stuff. Iceland is one country that we visited out of 4. And yeah, I mean, any other,
and there's like, there's like a huge benefit to going to the actual country, going to the studio, and working with musicians who live in the area, using instruments that were made in the area. It's something you don't really, no offense to LA, but it's not something you can really get. I remember at the end of, was it like day 3 of one of the sessions, we were sampling one of the Viking instruments. It was a long day. And at the end of the day, we stepped out into the parking lot, and then we looked up, and there was like all these northern lights going. And it was like, well, you don't get that in LA either, So it was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, let's just say this out loud. It's just a little bit of a plug for Musio and Cinesamples, but you can't model that. You can't recreate that digitally. You can't replace those sounds with a synthesizer. You have to go to the source. You have to record it really well, and you have to produce it excellently to get a good result. And we're committed to doing that. That's what we're passionate about. That's what we love. We want to make real instruments. We want to capture those real sounds from the real places. And it's going really well so far. Anything else, Maddie?
Yeah, that actually does tie in really great to a question that we have from Frozen, who says, it's just asking about the balance between quantity and quality, and how do we strike that and ride that fine line with what we're developing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's actually one of the reasons why we decided to jump in so aggressively to the creation of Musio. We can maintain quantity and quality outside of a contact interface because it takes drastically less time to script and design and implement working with a third party. Like Mike said at the very beginning, we can record something like we did with, we had a test with like a kalimba. We recorded it that morning and we had it in that evening. That's obviously a very, very simple instrument, but it speaks to the implementation process and how we've kept Musio so low key in its features and stuff like that. It actually really helps. You can play a solo cello like Tina Guo's solo cello, or the Apocalyptica cellos that are absolutely phenomenal, without all the bells and whistles, and get a phenomenal sound. And that took, I think, 2-3 days to get into Musio after we chopped it and everything like that. So we're definitely not going to sacrifice quality for quantity, if that's what is being asked. Quality is king. If Musio becomes an instrument that has just like a ton of filler, and all the instruments are kind of like, all right, I guess that's an instrument, it's fine, I guess I could use it for this, and you have to keep on tucking it back in your mix because it doesn't sound excellent and stuff, that's just going to be a failure on our part. So quality 100% is the is the absolute goal. Quantity has been solved by the platform and by the tools that we've developed for us internally. But, you know, we have all this stuff in the can. It's taking us a long time to get it through because we do require quality. In fact, I'll talk about maybe some of the things that we've missed. So on our roadmap on musio.com, we have a couple of these World Series slotted for June, and it's the 13th right now. I promise you, we're not going to get some of that stuff in for June. And the reason is, and I'll kick this one over to Amanda to talk about, but it's because we've been hung up on Voces 8. These singers, I'm going to say this out front, these singers are some of the best singers in the world, and that's not hyperbole. They are absolutely phenomenal, but it just takes a long time to produce vocals. Amanda, you want to talk about some of those challenges and how you asked me for like an extra month so we could get it all right?
Yeah, so basically Voces 8, we've been working on since January. So it's been about 6 months from starting to chop to now, which is half of them are finally exported. But yeah, when you're working with a vocal library, it's totally different than obviously something like Cinestrings, right? They have the notes that, you know, they have the fingering positions that they need to transition to for legatos. It's just different. They know exactly where the note is, whereas with vocals, it's way trickier. So we had to go back in, and I had to do a couple passes on the tuning and the finalizing for this library specifically. And yeah, it's just a little bit more tricky, and everything I think was a little bit new territory for us in terms of figuring out how to solve solve some of these, and mapping some stuff that may have been missed by the singers in the session. And yeah, so it's just been taking a little bit longer just because we value that quality over quantity. And that's actually a conversation that I've had many times with Shane because of this. So we want to get the tuning right, and we want to get, you know, quality is king, as Shane said. So yeah, it's almost there, but it's going to be worth it.
We just want to make sure that when you're pressing through round robins, they all have the same timbre, they all have the same length, they all have the same start, they all have the same tuning. Like, it's really important for these things to be usable. And about a month and a half ago, Amanda, we were just getting ready to start to export and stuff, and she's like, "Look, I'm finalizing some of these, and I need more time. Like, these are going to be fine, and we can put it out, but is it going to be great? Is it going to be really good?" And she asked for that, and the answer for me is always going to be yes. Yes, when someone is dedicated to excellence, as we are as a team, we always chase that. And you know, we have more stuff coming out. It's not like that's the only thing that's holding us up, but we are dedicated to that 100%.
Any other from different departments that could speak on their experience of taking care of Musio and the users?
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit about so I have the enormous pleasure of working with Andrew and Colette, who are the ones really going through the nitty-gritty of every support ticket and categorizing them, organizing them, working with our customers to go back and forth and gather whatever other information we need to make sure that we're talking about the right issue, making sure that we're understanding what is happening, that whatever you think should be happening differently, if there's something that's not working properly, and we're making sure we understand exactly what it is. That's always a fun detective work challenge sometimes, because everyone's computer system is different. Everyone has files in different places. Everyone has different organizations of things. And it's one of the advantages of Musio is keeping everything simple and streamlined, and having just what you need when you need it, and avoids a lot of that multiple drives, having different libraries in different locations, and all those fun things that anyone who's ever done software troubleshooting gets to reminisce about. But yeah, one of the things that gives us enormous confidence is knowing that the production team has such a dedication to quality, and knowing that any issues that get reported that we can do something about, we're gonna do something about it. So as Mike mentioned earlier, there's the in-app submit feedback options, which come directly to our customer service portal. They come directly through us in Zendesk, and we'll respond back via email. So whatever you have that you'd like to see, whatever features you'd like to request, we're keeping track. Colette has a spreadsheet with all the feature requests and the counts of people who have reported it. So it's very encouraging knowing how focused Shane is and Harrison are on user experience and how people want to work and how people want to work with these tools, and that they listen when we tell them this is how people are telling us they would like to work with these tools. So
if I can follow up on that, just to peel back the curtain a little bit, as a team, we meet once a week to actually go through the support tickets that aren't an immediate answer or, have a quick solution. And I want to shout out to my team member, Ed. He's our liaison and sort of front line of investigating more the system or plugin or Musio Connect issues. The topic here is quality over quantity. I think in a lot of support cases, you could probably just say works on my machine, which is, that might as well be tattooed on every dev. But we definitely take the time to pay attention to the details that come through. I'll take a second here to reiterate, use the in-app feedback and the per instrument feedback, because Musio will slip in the exact information about what OS, what version, or if it's an instrument, which release of that instrument. All this just streamlines everything. If we, for instance, let's talk about instrument quality. If we get, an issue with, Cinepiano, the issue of the day, when that ticket comes through and you submit it through the per instrument feedback, we know exactly which version was the problem, especially as we roll out updates. There will be multiple versions. So it'll be critical to be like, oh yeah, this new version that we released, oh, maybe there's still a bug we didn't catch, or maybe a user is actually submitting a ticket on the old version. We can immediately turn that around and say, hey, try updating to version 1.1. That should be a fix there. The quality of feedback we want to give is as high as possible. And that means that this weekly meeting, Santiago and Kirsten are there to represent the product team, and myself, the whole dev team, is there to sort of suss through the issues you guys encounter and really dive into what could be the best solution. There are definitely some head scratchers out there which have led to a little backlog of tickets. So things that we can't solve right away, we keep that evidence or those reports. Crash logs are amazing on Mac OS X. All these things we use to produce high quality responses.
Awesome. Maddie, can we do a rapid fire session of just answering yes or no questions from the chat?
Yeah.
Let's do that, because I know there's a bunch of little minutia and stuff here, but
I think we have a question that could be answered yes or no, regarding, it's a future question regarding any plans to open the platform to third parties.
Oh gosh, that's a big discussion.
I don't know if that can be answered.
Yes or no.
It's not a yes or no. We've volleyballed that and spiked it at each other back and forth for a long time. There's a lot of minutia there. I don't think now is the time to get into it. It would be really cool if we could find the right kind of vibe, but mostly we want to work with artists and producers right now to develop instruments. But it's complicated. Let's just say that's our Facebook status. It's complicated.
I mean, I'll say, yeah, there's currently no plans, right? I think because it allows us to have control over the quality of the stuff we're doing. I think also selfishly, we like to be in the studio and do it all ourselves. And because we can do it so quickly, I don't think we need to rely on other third parties. There's also like technical challenges that have to port other instruments from other developers over into Musio. And, I think porting Cinesample stuff is hard enough. So we're going to get that done. And then,
also, none of our titles say accountant next to it. And we don't like to deal with all the monetary financial minutia of that. It actually gets really complicated really fast. So, yeah.
We've got lots of great questions. I know I couldn't get to every one of you guys' questions, but they're really not yes or no's.
Well, hit me with, so I see a couple here, like, is there plans to add AMP envelope controls, ADSR, cutoff, mod envelopes, LFOs? Yes, they're already in there in many cases. Check out Vision Synths, check out any of our new synth content for sure.
Here's one from Maestro Harmony. Will you continue adding to the studio guitars / studio bass?
Yeah, absolutely. These are all going to go in at some point. I got a Les Paul, I've got a Telecaster, I've got a couple of different acoustics, mandolin. I've got a Strat on that wall and a semi-hollow on this wall. I've recorded 2 of them already, so yes. And Santiago's got some more instruments as well. We're both guitar players, and we're definitely very, very excited about adding to that. Studio basses as well. I've got a bass guitar that I'm building in my garage and painting. In the next couple months, I'll be putting that into Musio. So yeah, we've got big plans for that.
In addition,
and there's things we can sample ourselves. And then there's like, oh, if we need a string orchestra at 20th Century Fox, well, we'll do that. Right. Yeah. Or if one of us is really good at the harmonica, we'll just sample it in our living room. Like we'll do whatever it takes to get the instrument done in a high quality way.
Yeah.
In addition to industry brass, will there be any other industry series like strings, winds, etc.?
I mean, that's the dream. That's the goal. We definitely want to tackle those big stages. My dream scenario for Musio is that it has 2 significant studios in it. I think that puts it heads and tails above a lot of competitors and a lot of other offerings out there. So if we had the Sony, Cine series, and we had the industry Fox series, that would be phenomenal. So we have designs for that, but right now we're just more focused on what we have already recorded in the can. To that end, though, industry brass from Fox is going into beta and live in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Will there be a legato type feature for those guitars?
Yeah, actually, let's talk about guitars for like 30 seconds. Santiago and I had a really awesome meeting a couple of weeks ago about, because we're guitar players and it's really hard to like why would I ever want to play guitar on a keyboard? It doesn't make any sense to me. And I also think guitar is kind of easy, in comparison to like a flute or a violin or a cello where there's no frets and you should be terrified if you're a player of that instrument. So I'm like, wow, how do we really approach this in a usable way? What does a producer sitting in the producer's chair want of a guitar player? So we have this idea on a new layout for the guitar on how to chunk up the guitar in sections that make sense to producers who don't play guitar. As a producer who doesn't play guitar, I think the questions you're going to be asking of a guitar player is like, hey, play something kind of higher on the strings and kind of up on the neck. Like, give me something brighter, give me something darker, give me something in the middle, just really basic stuff. And we have a plan to not only do legato, but absolutely, yes, that's going to be a part of it, but to make sure that the guitar is actually expressed the way that a guitar is expressed and not like a cheap Casio version of a guitar, which I think a lot of guitar instruments sort of are today. It's either that or you don't have the control and they're just performances that you trigger. So as guitar players, we're very excited to implement some of that stuff, and we've already done some tests and they've gone really well. So yeah, look out for that content coming. We've got a handle.
Any new info for mic position / key switch updates?
Let's talk about, let's pivot into features. Harrison. Well, first of all, I'm going to give Harrison an out here. We're not promising dates on this. Development dates we have internal dates and we have internal goals that we're working very hard to hit, but we don't want to piss anyone off and we don't want to give anyone false hope. We know that they're very integral to your workflow. So we're not going to give hardline dates like that, but we are working on it. But Harrison, why don't you give us the deets?
Cool. Yeah. Hey, everyone. So the musio.com roadmap kind of covers trying to remember in the order. First thing, we calling it internally our instrument panel. Right now, Musio users are used to a little drop-down control in the rack, and we want to make that a more premier look. Instead of a little drop-down rack with a bunch of sliders, we want a large graphic with macro knobs, if applicable, individual effects as chosen by the production team, what they feel is right, including bypass switches so you can turn off an effect and save a little performance on your CPU. We are in full production on that. There's kind of every feature has 2 critical stages. Dev team, my team has to build the feature. and then we'll ship it to the production team, and then they will go through and update the instruments to take advantage of those features. As much as we have that vertically aligned approach about, hey, if we produce a feature, it's for all instruments, it doesn't necessarily mean all instruments automatically opt into it. We definitely want to make sure that the streamline approach to an instrument says, like, hey, let's not paralyze a user with an excessive amount of controls unless it's appropriate for the instrument. So instrument panel is our first task here. Articulation key switching, just to talk a little bit about what happens behind the curtain. Start of this year, we had an offsite meeting where we all met in person and had some amazing discussions. And I remember we just like broke off into a little group, and all of a sudden more and more people start coming in, and we had like a full whiteboard of designs and full Pepe Silva vibes about what, what would key switching, where does this fit in? And it immediately became evident that like this is actually going to be a critical feature, and maybe it wasn't on our radar this year. It's now one of our, it's the most requested, I would say the loudest issue. And it really does make a lot of sense for, I would say every competitor sample library there has some form of key switching in one way or another.
You want me to show it?
Yeah, why don't we showcase this? If you want to bring it up, I'll just talk really briefly. I want to re-emphasize that we are UX focused here. Everything, we're all sample users, we're all composers. At some point, I know maybe like 5 to 7 years ago, I used to nerd out about getting the mic positions and every articulation laid out and fully integrated in my DAW. So we've all seen that. But when you take the UX really seriously and try to get something that's unified, that covers a whole company's range of instruments, it's a very fascinating challenge. And we'll go back to that arguing when Shane and Maddie meet with Toby and myself about this kind of design, looking in Figma, laying out what it's going to look like. It's probably 2 or 3 meetings, at least an hour each, saying, this looks good. No, you can't do that. I don't know how we'll implement it. What about this idea? I'm going to need every hover state, please. Can you build out a matrix? It's detailed.
Yeah. And Toby is an integral part of that as well. He is our reality checker, which is great. But let's look at this, and I'm going to answer some of these questions that have come up about this. So for planned key switching, would you be able to, this is from Daniel, for planned key switching, would you be able to load a single instrument mapped to a single channel, or you still need separate articulation spread across multiple MIDI channels? This is a single instrument loaded on a single channel. It's important. So we're going to actually design and develop these. This was a big collaboration process between dev and production and Steve and his team. We all talked about what you guys would want and what we would want. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to have like multiple key switch patches that are essentially key switch presets as you would see them in our contact library versions. So we'll have light sketch key switch patches. We'll have full key switch patches. The thing about it is we don't want somebody who just wants to load a couple of things to sketch really quickly to have to download absolutely everything in a whole instrument if they don't want to, and sort of be inundated with all this content and hard drive space stuff. So this is a example of a industry brass 6 horns key switch patch, and I'm going to zoom really far in here because I don't know if it's going to be showing up well, but we sort of reimagined what a key switching layout would look like and what sort of frustrations that we have and stuff. And in this new instrument section on the right side, we've given a little bit more space graphically to kind of display these things. And what we want to do is we want to develop these just with like a white glove kind of an approach. So this would be a full key switches, and you'll see little tags here and all sorts of information that lets you know what you're playing and where it's mapped and all these kinds of things. And if it's too big, because there's a ton of articulations in an instrument, we're going to add pagination here like you see to make sure that you can just see everything and it's very clear, it's very straightforward. When you download that key switch patch, it will download all the articulations included in that key switch patch. So if you just want to sketch and you have like sustains and shorts, done. Like, we got you. But that's going to be curated on a one by one basis per instrument. So yes, it's coming. It's designed. We're very, very excited about this, and it's a feature that we all are going to love, and it will not require multiple channels.
Cool. Do you want to keep speaking on this, or can we direct other questions? Or
let's actually do a couple of these. Harrison, you want to talk about
yeah,
these?
Yeah, I got through those two features. Key switching is our next goal once we get these, as you can see at the bottom, this effects. That's our instrument panel goal. I guess I want to talk about mic positions. Again, to pull the curtain aside and reveal what's in Musio, we had mic positions in Musio prior to launch. And, you know, it was a proof that the system could do it. We had designed and paid careful attention to what is a mic position, and even taking a step beyond your traditional orchestral scoring stage. What does it look like when you have a parallel compression? You know, those aren't mic positions, but it is a blend of two, you know, phase aligned things, if we want to just think of it very generically technically. So we stripped it back and thought about, these are multiple channels playing together. How do you want to work with that? We did our initial internal alpha about how does this work, and we saw immediately that it was a major drop in UX, because the mic positions were all bundled together. If you wanted to download, you know, we had a version of Cineperk with all 7 mic positions in. Yeah. It's like, I just want a snare drum, and it's like, sorry, that's 3 gigs. Yeah. And it just absolutely ground Musio to a halt. So we made some hard startup decisions and said, we're going to stick to our well-mixed main mic position. And the challenge with mic positions going forward, when we tackle this feature in the very soon future, is how does downloading and the general user experience of mic positions, we want to make sure Musio stays nimble when you want to download a new instrument, but then if you're ready to you know, put together a massive template, because you've got the horsepower, you've got the disk space, and you have the need for a really custom mix, whether you want to bring that dry or wide, depending on genre of film score or whatever you're working on. All those check boxes have to be hit. And I think what we're looking at really is covers the details we need from the development side, and also features a super slick user experience. I'll pass it to Shane to talk about it.
Yeah, so let's just highlight a couple of key features. When when we implement this, when you load in a new instrument, it's still going to load in just the full mix, and you're going to have these buttons where you can either download or activate the extra mixes. So from a performance side, Musio will still be very streamlined and very quick. We're not going to throw more content at you than you decide. So that's going to be really nice. Also, just to take a look at the production side of it, Santiago is including in all of his ports. Well, I should take one step back. Amanda and I are chopping all mic positions across all of our sessions. So we are dealing with 10 channel and 12 channel and 6 channel instruments all the time, and they are being produced. So there's no extra work on the back end. And when we port them in, Santiago is actually porting in all of these things. So there's no like mountain to climb once we get this feature in. It's a little bit more of a flick of a switch, and we'll have a bunch of this stuff implemented. So we're doing a lot of work in the background on this, even though it's not the main focus before key switching and stuff. So we're working on it. This is the design. I think it gives pretty much everything you need. And yeah, that's that. Alrighty, let's take a brief look at some of the really quick things that are coming up here. This is my massive Figma document, just so you guys know. This is all of Maddie's and my designs and posters and our Sassy Clock. I forgot Sassy Clock was there.
Oh, no, we knew that was going to happen.
I was waiting for it.
I did not remember that. Okay, we're going to keep going here. We're going to pivot, and this is the new kind of setup. So this is our TB303 synth bass. we're adding all of the expression and cutoff stuff over here instead of in the rack. We're just trying to increase user experience and ease of use across the board. Here are some of the designs for the effects and bypass buttons. I know a lot of people have been requesting bypasses so that they don't have to turn down knobs all the way to 0 every single time. So we are listening, we're developing these things, and these are in the works. They're being designed currently. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I'll say about that. Anything else here, or should I stop sharing? I think
I was going to say, we touched briefly on that. In the catalog, we wanted the instrument grouping below a collection, especially with Gina Luciani flutes. And I think there's a demo really close here. Yeah,
right here. Okay, so this is, we talked about this, but this is essentially what it's going to look like. Previously, you would click a collection and you just see a big long list of individual, and you'd scroll city at that point. It's not a great experience. At this point, you'll be able to click into a collection. And in this case, you'll see all these, and then you'll get the alto flute. And hey, for everyone waiting, there's your download all button. Ta-da. And the crowd went wild silently on YouTube. We're going to have a download all button. It's going to make all of our lives a lot easier and a little bit more organized. As you can see, you can just see the alto flute. And as we get key switching patches in there, you'll see them added on the top. So yeah,
we have some new Sassy Clock fans already.
Oh, yay.
This is time-stamped forever on YouTube history.
Gonna have to sneak that into the UI somewhere now.
Yeah, right.
We'll have a little Easter egg in there somewhere with Sassy Clock.
Cool. All right, let's move on to another agenda item, unless we have other questions.
Yeah, we've still got some really great questions coming in. I know I'm not able to get to all of them, but let's see what else is being asked. We have a question from Nathan asking if it's possible to run multiple MIDI tracks into Musio to play different sequences on different instruments, then route those out to different mixer tracks.
Only with a flux capacitor installed. No, I think yes.
Are you asking about multi-output, like just having different instruments in a rack on different MIDI channels and different output channels coming through? Yeah, that's multi-output support. That's a default feature that you can turn on in Musio Connect in settings. You can turn on auto increment MIDI channel and auto increment output bus. That will make each new instrument that you load in the rack add MIDI channel 2, MIDI channel 3, MIDI and output 3 and 4, output, et cetera, et cetera. You can turn those on and off at will, and depending if you're setting up. We've talked a lot about key switching, and Mike did a video recently showing about articulation switching in the DAW and how that is an opportunity for those of you using a DAW like Logic, Cubase, DP, Studio One has their sound variations. A lot of DAWs have ways of setting up articulation switching by MIDI channel, which allows you to have one instance of Musio. For example, I have my Giga template in Logic that is mostly for when I need to download everything in the collection on a new computer. It's got every instrument in Musio loaded in it, but I have I think it's 536 tracks at this point. And so I've got one track for violins, one longs with all of the legato and sustain and tremolo, etc. Violins, one shorts, all of the different short types. And then I have an articulation map in Logic that is assigning different MIDI channel performance to each note. And then as you play or record notes in, you can go into the piano roll and assign them to play back those articulations. So Mike did a great video recently showing how that works in Digital Performer. So check that out on YouTube.
But as far as routing goes, yes.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah.
To answer the question that was asked, yes.
Yeah. Your Mechagodzilla template is very cool.
Any plans to bring Musio to iPad, even if it's years from now?
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely not going to say no to iOS. I mean, that's obviously a massive hill to climb in a totally different industry. But we want Musio on every single device. And I think the streamlined capacity of Musio makes it really, really nice for that application. If you just want to play a little something, I mean, we had those iPad bands years ago that got famous. They needed Musio at the time to have stuff like this, single articulation shorts of bells and whistles and all sorts of things. So yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit.
As the catalog continues to expand, is there going to be a feature to be able to download the whole catalog with different drives instead of just one location?
Toby, you want to answer this one?
It's certainly something we're aware of, and we know that it's going to be needed, especially as the library gets bigger. It's not on our short-term roadmap, just because we've decided that the other features we've already looked at are more important, but we know that we won't be able to put that one off for too long, because like I said, eventually the library is going to be so big that it's going to be necessary. I don't remember, someone did ask in the chat what the total size of, a while back, someone asked what the total size of his library now. Obviously that's now and things change, but it's not absolutely huge, so you should be able to get away with it in a single drive for now. But yeah, we know we need to do that at some point soon. But I don't know if you happen to have that number. Just to answer that,
Steve might have that number, but keep in mind that
eyeing it right now. Hang on.
Once we flip the switch, well, first of all, we're adding so much new content so fast, this number is going to be outdated in about a week. But once we flip the switch for multi-mic positions, that number is going to get blown out of the water. It's going to exponentially rise. So
right now weighing it in just under 200 gigs, 197.6.
Yeah. So manageable. Yeah. But once we, quadruple the size of the library with the extra mixes and stuff, it's going to be necessary to.
So it's less than the size of one flagship 7-mic string library.
Right. It's about twice the size of the Cineper Contact library. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. If I may just take a second. So one thing I wanted to address, it's not really pressing, but some people have asked about when they're upgrading versions of a particular instrument, let's say the Cinepiano 1.0 versus 1.1. Downloading those two instruments does not mean that there are duplicates of those samples. If any of our Musio users here have explored their sample directory, they'll see, a gibberish of hexadecimal characters. And the idea there is we are trying to use a content-based hash that says, hey, when we upload version 1.1 of Cinepiano, it will look through the samples and say, okay, well, I'll make a unique hash for each of the samples. And what will happen is only the unique samples that were new in that 1.1 will be added to your sample directory. Anything else, there may be additional duplicate downloads, but they will be discarded immediately. Our goal is to keep that usage very low. It was actually one of the first things we noticed with some contact instruments that we saw from third parties, even internally going through legacy. If you try to do a Musio to contact drive comparison, I'll tell you right away, the contact versions have duplicates of samples that maybe had a slight rename, but it never had that content analysis to say like, yo, these three samples are the same. Let's mush it down into an ID and associate it that way. One of the perks of the sort of streamlined validation and uploading method of Musio is the content team never has to stress about, wait, do I need to clean up vestigial samples? The system will go through, squash those duplicates, and anything that's not referenced, even if it's in your sample directory that you were building against, it's not referenced in the instrument, it does not get uploaded.
Can we take a second with you and Toby, just back and forth? Can we talk about the need or lack thereof of purging with the current setup of Musio? We get a lot of talk and a lot of chatter online about we have to have purging and stuff like that. It seems to be a pretty common problem in other players and some of our competitors, even some of the platforms and apps that we really like and we really like using. So what sets Musio apart? How is that handled? And why is it an issue or not an issue for us?
I guess I'll dive into that. I mean, in my composing career, I always used a 2-computer rig. So I had like a wealth of RAM at my disposal. And I get the need I understand where purging comes from in the history of, let's say, Contact. I think Contact's the main plugin we talk about when we say memory purging. And I think it comes out of the need of building these Giga Godzilla templates, especially if you're using all articulations loaded, all mic positions, right? You're firing all cannons, and it turns out it's expensive to have every cannon loaded at all times. From our experience on our own platform, Musio, and loading the Giga templates we have for testing purposes, I have an M1 MacBook, and it seems to just fly through a Giga template. In terms of memory footprint, for those who want to tweak, check out the Musio Connect settings. You can adjust your preload sample size. I think it's fixed to quantities of 8 kilobytes. And if you want to, if you're confident you've got a fast SSD or an NVMe and like your disk streaming is not an issue, definitely feel free to lower that preload size and see what you can get away with for reducing your memory footprint. Our goal is really optimize the heck out of Musio rather than throw in I'll say it kind of feels like a stopgap to have purging, but honestly, also give us feedback if we need more information and data points to say where purging lands in your workflow. I think we hear a lot about we want purging, but take some time, submit in-app feedback, and really sell it.
Yeah. Anything to add, Toby?
No, not really. We have had requests about purging come in, and I mean, purging is a word, a lot of associations with it, and purging can mean different things to different people. There's a lot of features that sort of fall under the purging umbrella. For example, being able to load an instrument and not have any sample data loaded until you play a key, for example, which is something that usually is done on a leaner machine just to save resources. We've tried to address resource issues in other ways, so we decided that kind of feature isn't super necessary, but you can tell us if you feel otherwise, and if enough people say that they do, then we'll think about it again. But right now, that kind of control isn't really on the roadmap.
Yeah, if I may jump right on the back end of that, your DAW is actually probably doing this already for you. I know in a lot of our testing of DAWs, usually we have to account for the fact I mostly work in Logic, and I do a lot of my first, it's the first DAW I test when I'm making new builds of Musio. Logic, if you don't have any MIDI in the track, it's essentially unloaded, non-existent. I could take Steve's Giga template, and if there's no MIDI information, I'll open it. It'll load instantly. I can verify Musio Connect that there are no instances trying to connect. So definitely take a second look at what your DAW can provide, and then just work with it. At the end of the day, the DAW itself is trying to accommodate your memory and processing footprint alongside us as the plugin developer.
For what it's worth, when I look at Musio's reported memory footprint in my Giga template with all instruments loaded, 4.4 gigabytes. That's what it says it takes.
It's exceptionally low and awesome. Okay. This is wonderful. I don't think we have any pressing questions, Maddie. If not, I can go into talking about new content, stuff that's coming up, exciting, what the future holds.
Yeah. If any of you had any questions or feature requests that weren't touched on, please submit them to us. We read everything. We want to hear your questions, concerns, and hopes and desires. So keep doing that, please. Thank you.
We have that meeting after this. The meeting is
great.
Let's look at some of the coming soon stuff, just to give you a brief look at the roadmap. We've got Cinewinds, Monster Lowinds going in, Cinebrass Sonore from the legacy Cinesamples libraries. We've got from the new set of content coming up, slotted for June, but like we explained, we're just trying to dial it in and get it right. So these are going to be a little bit late. We've got a lot of stuff coming in early though, from the later months, like in August and July. So don't worry about that. We're still going to be pushing out brand new content every couple of weeks. But we've got Vachis 8 coming up, very, very close to being done with that. Cinestrings Pro, which is really an amazing collection. Africa and Iceland are both slotted for the first sets of World Series content. And let me pause there just really quick so I can read you the massive list of instruments that we got in South Africa. We got a Michingo pipe flute, in Uhadi, in Mbira, Kalimba, a Nyunga, a bunch of different shakers, probably like 6 or 7 shakers, a water bucket where we filled a water. There's like this instrument that this group of people made, this really amazing band that we hired to record a bunch of these traditional instruments, but they created it by filling a bucket with some water and then having like a plastic rod in the middle that they would then vibrate to make these really weird water sounds. Grass shakers, a bunch of mallet instruments. We've got 4 different marimbas. We've got alto, tenor, bass, and I think maybe just three marimbas, alto, tenor, and bass marimbas. We've got African drums, Zulu bass drums. We've got amandindas, kayombas, a couple of djembes. We recorded a talking drum, which is going to be a really, really interesting challenge to cut and produce, but we got a lot of different articulations with the talking drum, ankle shakers, and different sizes of kudu horns, which is a kind of type of an antelope. Bass drums, African harps, and we recorded 2 choirs. We recorded a bass and tenor choir, an alto soprano choir, and then a full choir with them all together. And let me tell you, this is different than any other choir library that I am aware of. It's a traditional South African choir. And instead of doing the legato approach with these beautiful sort of like Western styles, we did all these different vowel sounds and consonant sounds to really bring to life the African traditional style. And we consulted with some really amazing composers before we went out and did this, and we spoke to them personally and got through a lot of content to make sure that we're really nailing the vibe. So that's very, very exciting. We've got soundscapes coming up, and I'll talk a little bit about soundscapes. Soundscapes is a very, very script heavy instrument. It deals with granular synthesis inside of Contact and has all sorts of bizarre stuff going on. It's kind of an unsung hero, in my opinion, of the Cinesamples library. I love this instrument. It's really, really wonderful. And if you want the full control, go buy the Contact version. Full control with granular synthesis. I'm not going to say never, but we have 0 plans to adding a granular synthesizer to Musio. And it really does have some cool benefits. But what we've done is we've hired Kaz Rodriguez, who's a phenomenal drummer for Josh Groban and all these other different Shaka Khan and all these people. And he's a brilliant composer in his own right. And he basically took soundscapes and he reproduced all of the presets from that library. And he is currently developing like 20 new presets that we're going to get all into Musio. So that's going to be a really exciting set of content. And then I know people have been asking like what more keys and pianos are coming into Musio. We have a Wurlitzer coming up. We've got a Cine, which is being cut and produced right now. We've got a Cine harpsichord coming in very, very soon. And we have a upright piano that we recorded at Sonic Fuel in LA. And then last from the Legacy series for this month that we have slotted as Voices of War, Men of the North. And we're going to do our best to get that Iceland Women's Choir in as soon as possible, but it's a lot of work to get vocals in, and we want to make sure that we get it right. So that's kind of what's coming up in the near future. And if you want more information, you can go to musio.com and look at the coming soon. I think we've already touched on all the features. Anything else we want to highlight, Harrison, there? We good on feature updates?
I think we're good for now. I'm sure we'll do another live stream, and I'm sure we'll have a new list then.
Killer. Awesome. Then, yeah, I think then to wrap this up, I just want to talk about, and I'll have this like kind of open to the team. And this can be Colette and Andrew. I know we haven't really heard from you a lot. Thank you for being there and hearing our customers and everything like that. But I just want to open this up to the team. We talk a lot about what Musio could be and what it can be and what we want it to be and what we want it to include and all this stuff. And I've got my own ideas, and I know the production team and myself are constantly looking for new content to create and all this stuff. But let's just talk about the things that we're excited about, the things that we're passionate about, anything that we want to see in Musio going forward. No promises, but this is kind of, I just want our customers and our users to get an idea of where our heads are at, what we're thinking, what gets us excited. And anyone can go. Feel free to just unmute yourself and jump in.
I'll kick it off here. before working with Mike and Toby, I used to have a side hustle doing a lot of, there's a company I ran with a friend called Composer Tech. And I got a lot of experience seeing a lot of studios, be it a small home studio to some of the A-list film composers in LA. And it was really fascinating to actually look back at my experience on what are some of the common technical problems or just hardships of working with a sample library. One of the biggest explorations I did in tech early on when I was assisting a film composer was we had one rig that would be 8 hours a day writing, and then I'd sneak in after hours and start printing stems, and it led me down a journey of why can't we have two rigs? And the technology and licensing at the time was really restrictive. If anyone's familiar with VE Pro, you start working around VE Pro at the time to make isolated networks, so that way it's not trying to cross connect between the rigs, and you're working with your sample instrument distributor, see if you could get a 50% off side license because you need a duplicate set, and next thing you know, you've picked up another TV show and you need a third rig, and it's the same ordeal again. So when I think about Musio, and I know when we were initially laying down some groundwork, it was, I just kept going back to this cheat sheet of like, what were the most common like things I ran into on like, how can we empower, a TV composer, someone who has to, write multiple minutes a day and have a team that is in sync to print stems, mix, arrange, whatever it is, have a unified set of samples, even getting someone, someone to co-compose with. Now, how do you synchronize two composers? And I think Musio has an amazing, I think we started advertising a bit. I know Mike made a great video of Mike Patty and Jason Hayes talking about the collaboration feature, and just keeping that barrier to entry of why must there be so many closed doors that I have to get through before I can just push keys on my keyboard and get it done. That it's something I'm passionate about, and it's really the driving aspect of Musio. It should be fun. It should be easy. It should be no question about what else do I need to get ready before I can make some music. So that I will always be passionate for. Everyone should. Yes, we talked about pricing and accessibility. Everyone should have access to Musio, but everyone should have fun with Musio, and it should always be a delight to pop it open and be like, oh yeah, I'm not confused about installation. I instantly get what this feature is about. So there's my little rant. Very deeply passionate about making sure it is smooth to use.
Yeah. Well, and that everybody has the opportunity to do it, whether they have the cash in their pocket or not. I love that, Mike could collaborate with a friend of his, and they're famous, at least in my book. They did StarCraft 2. Like, yes, this is the amazing thing, but Mike could have collaborated with anyone in the same level. They would have access to the same instruments for the same price. There's no tiered system right now. It's not you pay $2,000 if you want the gold platinum series that has all the features and all the content. If you really are a professional, it's kind of like, no, we want people to work with each other and create beautiful music together. And this is really a unique feature of Musio that I personally think is just wonderful.
To make it explicit, in case no one said it aloud, the feature is, if I have a Logic session and all the virtual instruments are Musio, and you are a Logic user with a Musio subscription, I can send you my Logic project and you can open it. And all of the Musio instruments that I have used in this session will automatically download to your system, load up. You can hit play and you will get an identical one, as long as all that is Musio and Logic stock plugins or plugins we both own. But there's no oh, do we have the same version of this installed, and is it in the same place, and do I have to relocate that samples, and oh, you don't have this plugin, oh, it drastically simplifies that and opens up a lot of opportunity for in other ways for students and teachers, for faculty who are creating projects for their students to do. Hey, write a piece using these instruments. Here's the project file. Turn it in a week with what you've done with it, and then you can open it up. So
I'd love to hear from. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'd love to hear from Amanda and Kirsten. Just you guys are content creators and really excellent composers and musicians in your own right. I'd love to see what you are imagining and dreaming for the future of what we could record and capture and design and create.
You want to start, Amanda?
They're both introverts.
Yeah, sorry.
You mean in terms of instruments?
Sure, yeah, anything.
Libraries. Well, I'm first really excited about Cinestrings Pro and our World Series specifically. And we didn't get to list off a couple of the Ireland and Scotland instruments.
So you want to do that real quick?
I'll mention a couple here.
Yeah,
I actually have a list. So I was part of the Scotland and Ireland leg, and really cool. We got some really awesome instruments in Scotland. We got bagpipes, both solo and an ensemble. We got a pipe band drumline, which I'm super nerding out about because I'm a drumline person. And we got Scottish harp, really beautiful, and dulcitone.
Yeah.
And in Ireland, recorded at the famous Windmill Lane Studios, we got an accordion and Ilian pipes, which both of those are going to be interesting to chop up and map, but we're excited about that. New territory,
new challenges. Yeah.
Yes, new challenges, going to be awesome. And the bodhrán drum and an Irish whistle. So all really cool instruments, really authentic to these cultures. That was the whole goal with the World Series, was just to keep all of this really authentic. And that's what makes me passionate about Musio, is how authentic we try to keep it. Yeah. Anything to add, Kirsten?
Yeah, I think the thing about Musio for me is, like, I remember to the time where I was starting to learn about sample libraries and just didn't really know what they were, and was like, what is this world of stuff happening in front of me? And the fact that you can have all of these instruments in one place, and we are keeping it so simple, to me is just I'm looking forward to the challenge of putting all of these new instruments in, trying to keep them as simple as possible, trying out these new Lua script things, but also making them applicable to as many things as possible. Like, it's going to be a big challenge, but I'm really excited to make everything as easy to use as possible. It's that same idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else? Yeah, Colette, Andrew, let's have you guys jump in. Brian, if you want to talk about anything. Brian's our marketing coordinator. So, and again, great musician and everything, and composer. So let's hear from you guys.
I just personally love this, like the accessibility and the collaborative nature. I know me and Colette just both graduated from USC, and we actually had like a project together where we had to collaborate, and it was just, we got it done, but with the Musio, it would have just been more seamless. Like, I think my session ended up being like 10 gigs just because we were just sending so much stuff back and forth. But with Musio, like it would have just seamlessly got the project done. Yeah.
Jumping on the heels of that, it kind of goes along with what Kirsten was saying. The most exciting thing to me about Musio is not only the collaborative aspect of it, but that you have all of these instruments right at your fingertips, and there's so much in there right now, and it's only going to get better. There's only going to be more stuff that's going to be coming, and just having that all in one place, being able to open up a session, like anything that my mind can think of, anything that I can imagine, it's possible to do. There's so many instruments, there's so many sounds to experiment with and have fun with, and I know I get a rush whenever I get to create a big session with so many sounds, and that's just one of the things I'm really excited for about Musio. And that's not just limited to what we are well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that we have lots of ideas for what we want to add into Musio, and we also want to hear all the ideas that all of you have. And so we've already said this before, but please write into support and let us know what you're thinking, like what features would help you be a better composer, what instruments would help you in your projects. Like we want to hear that so that we can make that happen for you guys.
Yeah, and from the content side, you know, we're coming to the end of this mountain climb of getting all of the Cinesamples library ported over in the next couple months, which is just amazing, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel being so bright. And also coming to the end of, you know, this massive set of instruments that we've, you know, gone all over the world to record. And once we're done with that, you know, it's not like we're not doing more sessions. We've got other stuff in the works right now, but we're going to be sat here with this massive library of recorded instruments, both synthetic and acoustic, and all of this different stuff. And, you know, as we watch more movies and consume more media, and we follow, you know, modern production trends, we realize that there's a lot of overlap between synthesis and acoustic samples now. There's a lot of overlap and a lot of really exciting design techniques and things like that. Well, we have all of the ammo to do these kinds of things. We have such a massive library that includes all sorts of things across the spectrum. I'm not only looking forward to getting back in the studio and recording some new exciting instruments, but also sitting with the content that we've already recorded really well and presenting it in a way that you guys have not seen before and have not even imagined before. Really getting some amazing low-end bass trombones and monster low winds mixed with some vintage synthesizer stuff that's just really useful patches that are going to be, you know, bounced down really, really low drag on the sample side, so that you don't have to recreate these things, but are just good offerings. And I think, you know, at this point we can start talking to some of our designer friends and composer friends who know what they need and who know what they use on these TV shows and films and stuff and video games and stuff. And we're going to start developing in that way as well. So I'm excited for just like the possibilities of our current library and how we can expand it and how we can make that even more useful than it already is on its own. So I think across the board, just excited. And I think we're kind of coming to the end of this. I say we...
Yeah. Actually, could I just share some final thoughts?
Before you do, Harrison raised his hand because I want you to be the end.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw some chat questions and comments, and it reminded me actually just an experience I had last night. Just the following up on Andrew and Colette's college experience. Something that I'm passionate about is getting Musio into the hands of students and faculty. There's some work that we're slowly rolling out. We've got some really good offers for students. And institutions and teachers, license codes and things like that. So if you or anyone you know is a student or a faculty or runs a music lab, please reach out to support. We don't have any public advertising on it yet as we roll it out, but it's something that I was just cleaning out something and I found some original scores where I was hand orchestrating stuff because I didn't have enough RAM in my computer to run. I think I had East West Platinum Orchestra. I had just gotten it. It's like, oh, if I had Musio, I could have ran it on my MacBook and gotten all the sounds I needed ready to go. So very passionate about empowering the next generation of composers. At one point, I was a fresh composer on the scene, and yeah, it turned out it's like, yeah, you can write music, but can you run the tech was like the big dividing line in the class.
Yeah. Cool. Yep. All right, take us home, Mike.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, when you look at the website, Musio, we have the subtitle. It says the infinite instrument, which is it's aspirational. And the idea is that we will, if we accomplish our total vision, it's to sample every instrument on Earth, right? And get it into Musio. That's if we had infinite budget and infinite money. And so the more people that sign up, that gives us the more chance to sample more instruments, get them into Musio. But that's the goal. You know, you should be able to load this thing up and just search for anything you could possibly imagine, and have it load up and be able to make music with it. And so I think we're heading in the right direction. It's an ambitious goal. These are the right people. I can't believe that this is the team that we get to work with. These are awesome folks. We've come a long way in everything that we've done. And yeah, but keep the questions coming. There's a lot we didn't answer here, so we'll have to. Yeah, they'll have to email us.
We'll have to go back. We can also reply to some of these things directly. We'll take some time and go back and answer some questions for sure. I also think we should do this more often now that we're a lot more established and we've got a really smooth workflow going on our end. We can do this more frequently. So I know we said that last time, but this time we're better at keeping our promises. So we're gonna do it, even if it's on a smaller scale. I don't want to bug devs and Doug and all these people with all this stuff, but maybe just smaller prod team and customer service team and stuff we can jump on this every once in a while and do a little short half hour blitz versions of it. All right. This was wonderful, guys. Thank you so much, everyone who logged on and watched and who likes Musio and who has questions. Please keep that info coming in, all the submitted questions. We love it. We really appreciate your time today, and we appreciate your subscription and all that stuff. We couldn't do this without you. We literally couldn't do this without you. So we're excited for the future. Hope you are too, and we will see you next time. Have a good one. Bye.
Love you.